everybody, and welcome to the Awful Earful. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Crofton. This is the show where we talk your ear off about awful movies. What's on the plate for today?
Not an awful movie, actually. Or, I guess that depends. Everything's
Yeah,
subjective,
it's subjective.
But, by and large, considered not an awful movie. Dawn of the Dead, 1978, the original, because there is a 2004 version, which has its own following. But we didn't watch that, we watched this. And it was my pick, so I guess I'll get right into it. We did an episode, a bonus episode actually, about Night of the Living Dead, and that was fun. It's been a while
Yeah.
since then. That was like our
Yeah.
second thing we ever released, and it's kind of weird I mean, not weird, but it's fun to be back in this franchise because this is another film directed by the kind of creator of zombies, pretty much, George A. Romero, and it's very well known. It's permeated through pop culture in many ways of kind of defining what zombies are. This basically furthers what they established in the first film. There's no really connective tissue or details or any continuity of any kind, except for the fact that the zombie virus in this has progressed a lot more than in Night of the Living Dead.
Everything's a bit bluer.
You mean with the zombies?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we'll get into that in a second.
It's like
Anyway,
Eiffel 65 made them. It's the
it's
people
like
who
who?
made on Blue Dabba Dee Dabba Die.
Oh, shut up.
Emphasis on the Dabba Die. I'm funny. I'm so funny.
No, you aren't.
Well, everything is subjective.
Anyways, yes, let's get into it. I wanted to break this up a bit differently. So I guess talk about just basic establishing stuff, which we did, and characters, and then we could talk about the plot and acting and effects and whatever. So I'll just break it down with the characters first to get everybody acquainted. So let me see here if I have everything right on my not IMDb, but Wikipedia page. So, four main characters for this film. We have David Emge, or MG, as Stephen Flyboy Andrews. And he's basically, I don't know what, he's a pilot. He works for the news channel in this film. And
And he's also a whiny bitch.
he's a bit of a whiny bitch. But, we'll get into it because I don't want to get into the plot right now. But, he's kind of like the impetus for everything in this film because basically the whole thing relies on him being a helicopter pilot and taking people, the main characters, where they need to go, which includes his girlfriend, who is played by Galen Ross, who plays Francine or Fran Fly Girl Parker. I don't remember them calling her Fly Girl in the film, but
It did like a single time. They were joking about her wanting to learn how to fly the helicopter.
okay, yeah, okay, that's definitely not enough for them to label her character as that.
Well, as you know, in movies such as these, the female characters are only ever an extension of the male characters.
In these films in particular, yes. We brought it up, I think, in the first Night of the Living Dead, where these films don't have a great track record with portraying women. They're kind of a little useless and flighty and dumb.
Yeah, just kind of
And just kind
ditzy.
of just kind of let the men handle everything, which as progressive in certain ways as these films can be in terms of like giving prominent roles to African Americans and in terms of gender roles, doesn't particularly age well, but doesn't really ruin the movie either. Anyways, let's move on from that. We'll get into that when we get to the plot. We have Scott Renager, Scott Renager, Reniger.
You're really giving that your all.
I don't know how to say this name. It's a weird name. It's Reiniger. Reniger? Renager? Whatever. He plays Roger, quote unquote, Trooper DeMarco, the crazy one.
Oh, the blonde one?
Yeah, I don't know why. Do they call him Trooper in the film? I don't
They called him
remember.
Soldier Boy. Well, I called him Soldier Boy.
Yeah, anyways, he's the blonde one. And he's a SWAT guy, I guess, in the beginning of the film. I guess he's a friend. I think they mentioned he's a friend of Flyboy at the beginning of the film, and he basically says he gives him an opportunity to meet up with him and that's how he gets involved in the whole helicopter scene. And then we have my favorite character, who's played by Ken Foray or Foree as Peter Washington. He's basically the most competent character in this film, I'd say. Anyways, he's just kind of cool and not a psycho or a
Looks like a
whiner.
goldfish.
So, what?
It looks like a goldfish.
I, what?
I don't know, just that he has a pronounced forehead, and his eyes are also large, and they're a bit set apart. He just looks like a goldfish to me. Oh, no
What
shame,
is?
like, goldfish are awesome, but he looks like a goldfish.
I don't see it.
I do.
Dude's got a receded hairline, and you're calling him a goldfish for that?
He looks like a goldfish to me, man. I don't know what to say.
All right. Well, thanks for that contribution. I
You're
was going
welcome.
to talk about his backstory a bit and a bit of his character, but
Grew up in a glass bowl with colorful rocks at the bottom, and there was a
all right.
little
Well,
pineapple.
that's all very intelligent commentary. Anyways, he's a SWAT guy too. He meets Roger, quote unquote trooper, and then they abscond from their SWAT positions, and
A little bromance.
yeah, a little bit, I guess. Doesn't
I mean, it's
matter.
it's more so just like testosterone-filled affection, like, oh yeah, we're raiding a gun shop together, yeah.
I think they kind of all develop a chemistry together. We'll get into it. Anyways, those are the characters. For the most part, there's other people, but they don't really matter because they're either background characters or
They're
just more.
colored blue.
So I guess we'll get into the effects or visuals of the film, which I think you had something to say about.
They were hilarious. The effects and the fucking music nearly split my
Well, let's
sides.
get one thing at a time.
Fucking zombies, man. They were like chalk ass blue. The blood looked like V8, man. I don't know who did that, but they should have been fired. Bright blue. I can understand that like your skin becomes discolored when you die. Fuck, dude. It looks like fucking like, in the first Thor movie when Loki is revealed to be one of those monsters, those ice people.
The Ice Giants.
Fuck. Yeah.
All
That's
right,
what he looks like.
so this is where it'll be a bit interesting because I have a bit of a diverged point of view from you in terms of the effects.
Did you think they were really good?
In terms of what you have a problem with, because you're focusing on really specific aspects of the effects. So, in terms of like the coloring of the zombies, which I don't think counts as effects, I think that's makeup.
Well, it counts as it's in that.
Eh, like an
It's a
effect
visual
would,
effect.
yeah, but that's like you wouldn't call like a news reporter putting shit on their face for lighting like a visual effect. You don't say that's VFX or something like that.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point.
My point of view on it is it's kind of like hyper realistic in terms of like cartoon depiction or Halloween decoration depiction of zombies. People are aware of like the whole zombies are kind of displayed as this having a greenish bluish hue to their skin. And I think for the most part, this film it's credited with establishing that kind of cliche of having zombies have kind of bluish, kind of gray, greenish skin. And
Gray and green I can understand, but just blue, I don't get it.
it's a lot of zombies like in like those like if you see like cartoon like or like just characters of zombies, they have kind of bluish, greenish, grayish that area. And this was definitely a bluish
I've only
gray.
seen strictly green gray for like cartoons and like
This
modern media and
The
shit like
movie
that.
is, I mean, I don't know. The movie looks very like bluish gray, like to me. So it's in that
I see way
ballpark.
more blue, but maybe that's just our eyes being different.
Well, that is actually a thing, People, everything is like slightly different based on what you see. Like colors are always like going to be slightly different. I'm not even talking like when people are colorblind, just people in general, individually, are all like sees things a little differently.
Yeah, all of the zombies were just very blue to me,
I saw the blueness, but
except for a couple of them.
I kind of just write it off as being like a quirk of the movie, like an establishing kind of like a further cliche of zombies. So I don't really pay much attention to it. I kind of just see it as like a charm of the movie in terms of that.
You want to know
Oh yeah,
what was really tragic? is
What?
they had some like zombies of color, and it really just looked like they spread like baby powder on their faces. Like it was such a bad job. The makeup was in no way accounting for their skin tone, and it was just really laughable.
Yeah, that's another thing. I think with the people of color, like the makeup, like they really compounded it on and it really clashed, so it looked even more like kind of grayish blue, like it really popped.
Yeah,
And again, I kind of just chalk it up to kind of a quirk or charm of the film, but it is a bit jarring, probably to
yeah. It
someone
looked
who's
like they
not.
were baking something and they spilled the flour.
I get it. It kind of looks jarring, but I don't mind it overall. And in
Mhm.
terms of the really bright red like blood, in terms of just watching a lot of old horror movies or 70s and 60s, like all blood looks like that, basically. In terms of color, film, and stuff like that, they really wanted blood to pop. That one of the reasons I think is, and so they'd make it like really crimson or bright red. So they didn't really kind of figure out blood for a long time. So in terms of having like, as you put it, V8 is I wasn't kind of put off by it because that's just kind of what I'm used to in terms of that era of filmmaking.
Mhm.
But in terms of like like decapitations and like
The effects in that sense were like very much ahead of their time.
then that's mainly where I kind of view them like in terms of like the skin, the flesh eating, the kind of
Yeah, that
all
was
that
very
stuff.
impressive.
And that's where I was talking to you about the special effects guy who's very famous from this movie. Not just from this movie, he does a lot of other things like Friday the 13th and a bunch of other stuff that I don't know off the top of my head, but he's probably the most famous like horror effects guy, Tom Savini, and he's very well known for working on these zombie films. And that's where I think most of his work comes in.
Yeah, like the splatters from the gunshots were very cool, very good, very accurately placed, although I'm no expert in that. Just the way that the blood flows from the gunshot looked very natural. It is impressive for a 60s/70s film.
Indeed, and that's another thing is where Night of the Living Dead is in a '60s film because it was made in that decade, but it really captures that decade as well. Dawn of the Dead is a very '70s movie.
Oh yeah, especially with the woman's hair. My
Oh
God, and her
yeah,
makeup.
and
My God.
and the mall,
Mm-hmm.
everything was very '70s, and the music. And I guess
Oh
we
God,
can
the music.
kind of get into this. The music, which you really did not like, you can.
It's horrible. It made me laugh, but it was just fucking awful. It didn't fit the mood at all. I wasn't intimidated whatsoever. It was like really weirdly upbeat. Like it was like all these synthesizers. It was like beep 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 beep. It's like I've what am I in a fucking Pokemon game?
I kind of understand your point, but like at the same time, like the synth kind of thing, I'm kind of used to it in terms of the film, and I didn't really pay it much mind. Like, I think the movie when the synth kind of like '70s like techno kind of music comes in, I think it has its high points and its low points. Like in terms of like not fitting the tone, sometimes this film has more like comedic moments and more like adventurous moments, and I could see where they could change it up a bit and I don't mind it. And like, there's certain points where the music kind of has kind of like an ominous tone to it that I also don't mind. But you're right in that it really kind of they really
It's just
persist on it.
goofy.
It is goofy at points, and they really what I don't think I've noticed on previous watches because I've watched this movie a couple times is how persistent the music is. Like
Yeah.
it's really there, and
Yeah, and like it took me a couple times pointing it out, being like, "What is up with this music?" for you to be like, "Oh yeah, it is kind of strange, isn't it?"
yeah, again, it's because I was kind of used to it, and to a point, I think I do like certain parts of it more than you do. But I do agree that's a lot of points where it doesn't quite match up, or it's overly persistent, and it
I
doesn't
mean,
match
don't get
up.
me wrong, I loved it. I thought it was hilarious.
Also, at the same time, what I was trying to say is, I think part of that is intentional. I don't think all the time because at sometimes it's completely like unwarranted and doesn't work. But I think at some points, like it's very intentional. Like the end of the movie, there's like once they vacate because they're in a mall, they vacate the mall at the end of the movie. Spoiler: we don't know who dies yet, so you could stop at this point if you're interested or not. Whatever. This is going to contain spoilers, people. I don't give a fuck. But when they
Should
leave,
have known that coming in.
yeah. If you've listened to other podcasts of ours, you definitely should have known that. If you're a new person, it's the episodes about Dawn of the Dead. Okay.
And we're always very sloppy about
And we haven't even
spoiler.
really talked that much about the plot yet. But at the part of the end of the film, after they vacate and the zombies take the mall back over, and they're kind of there's the whole conflict at the end of the film with other people in the mall. It's kind of like this goofy score at the end. You remember that?
Yeah, sort of, kind of.
It's kind of like a very Benny Hill type, like whoa, like a wacky score.
Oh yeah, and I was like, why the fuck did they choose that song?
And I was like, I love that because I feel that time it was intentional, like definitely intentional. Because you see the zombies just like going about like killing people, just like fucking shit up, and they're playing this kind of like goofy, like again, it's very like I don't know. The closest thing I can think of is the Benny Hill thing. That kind of felt intentionally funny. I don't know about you, but
I mean, it was certainly funny. I hope it was intentional.
I believe like just the way it's structured, like the editing, like there's a very distinct shot. I forget it cuts to a zombie or something. Like it really feels distinct when the music starts and like they edit it, and I feel like it's intentional. And that's my argument. I think at some points it's intentional, but you're right. I think it does. It's not befitting at points, and it definitely is overly persistent at certain points.
I mean, I'm just trying to look up who is like the head of the soundtrack
I saw it
department.
earlier.
I want to physically fight that person.
He's like probably 90 years old at this point, so or
Alright, good.
probably dead.
I might win.
Okay. You looking it up still, or
Oh, I gave up.
okay? Well, whatever. Let's move on then. We're just gonna move into the actual plot now. So basically, the film I think does a good job setting the tone in the beginning. It's basically taking place at the beginning. It takes place at a news station, and everything's going to shit. They have this expert kind of telling people that they have to kill zombies, and people are very morally opposed to that because it's all a new thing still at this point, and shit's going crazy, and the newsroom is kind of all nuts. And the lady
Mhm.
who works there, I think she's like a PA or something.
Because a woman can't have a real job.
Well, actually, it's funny. We do see one of the women being like an assistant director or a technical director in the
She's
beginning.
not important.
Well, she's not a character. Actually,
Eh.
what's his name? George Romero is in that. The director is in that beginning scene. Like, I think he's playing like the guy behind the scenes directing everything for a shot.
Ha! A little more humble than Quentin Tarantino, huh? If he has a role
Oh,
in
it's
his own
Quentin
movie, at least he's playing another director.
in the Dawn of the Dead movie. He's like in it for like a shot. Quentin Tarantino, he'll be like, "Hey, folks, it's me, Quentin Tarantino, and now I'm narrating the movie."
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's more humble than Quentin.
Oh, Quentin is definitely full of himself. But it's kind of funny because that's a kind of a charm of his movies when he shows up and he'll be like, "Oh, I have a terrible Australian accent, mate." Anywho, he was sitting next. I think George Romero was sitting next to his at the time wife.
Good for him.
Yeah, I don't know. It said at the time, so I don't know if she died and he got remarried or they got divorced. I didn't look into it any more than that. But I saw a movie detail on Reddit that talked about it, and I was like, "That's funny. We just watched Dawn of the Dead."
They're listening.
So shit's going crazy. Fran, as I'm gonna call her, is she leaves,
Franny.
and her boyfriend Flyboy, which is what I'm going to call him from now on because that's the meaning name that the SWAT guys call him. And he comes and picks her up, and then quickly we shift to a very violent takeover where the SWAT teams basically, I think the idea is they're taking down this kind of gang that's taken over this apartment complex. They break in and they realize that there's like zombies and shit, and they have to deal with that. But at the same time, there's this very weird scene at the beginning when they're about to bust in and this guy's kind of being an asshole and he's like being racist. He's like, these fucking Hispanics or something like that. He says some really racist shit, and you're like, well, fuck this guy. And then later, he's just when they're fucking shit up and taking down these guys, these gang members, he's just breaking into apartments and just killing black people.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Damn boy, you're having a little too much fun with this.
he becomes like a racist psychopath murderer like immediately. And the only other reason I mention it is because there's a part when he's talking before they enter the building, and he's like, I want to kill all those motherfuckers. And the ADR is really not great. It does not match up that well.
It's what he deserves, shitty audio.
ADR screw ups really bother me. It's kind of so jarring to the point that, I mean, I could see that it might not have even been the same guy. Probably not, because he's a bit part. But anyways, Trooper or Roger, I'm gonna just call him Trooper because that's the dumb nickname that Wikipedia gives him. Basically, tackles him, our blonde-haired guy who will go off the rails later, and then that guy gets shot. The racist gets shot. The racist gets shot, and they basically encounter zombies. They shoot him up, and he meets his new BFF, Peter. And that's where we find out that he's friends with Flyboy, or he knows him, and they abscond. They basically ditch their post, I guess. They fuck off to
Gotta
go
love it.
get a helicopter ride. Do you have anything else to say about that hotel's or apartment complex scene?
There was like weird. It was weird at points because it was like, first of all, they took so long to load their guns. Like they were so very purposeful about it. And that almost cost their lives a few times. It's like, man, this zombie is grabbing your foot and you're loading your third bullet into your little revolver. And then also, like, they were like weird about whether they were sad about killing zombies or whatever, because like, they were blasting through them left and right, but then Soldier Boy came up and shot one in the head that was about to grab Goldfish Man, and Goldfish Man let a tear fall. It's like, you didn't know that guy.
I think it's just kind of like the horror of the situation.
I guess.
Because I think it's very kind of, in a way, it's kind of really, especially for the time, a kind of a really like horrific situation. Because
Yeah,
they're,
but they snap out of it real quick. There's not another tear
I think,
shed.
well, I think because when well, there's not tears, but there's points where they kind of get a little shaken up about it. But they progress and they kind of lose that as they get more used to it throughout the film. In the beginning, they do. Like when they're
Yeah,
down in
especially
the
Soldier Boy.
when they're down in the basement, the scene where they're all kind of the zombies are all kind of in piles eating flesh, or they're all tied up and they're kind of like scrounging around. For me,
Inchworms.
yeah, for me that was like, especially for the time, kind of like a disturbing vibe. They're just kind of in there in a pile. Like I think that part also they were kind of like a little shaken up by. And especially as I said, for 70s era, I found that like an interesting, like disturbing depiction of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, like with the zombie kids.
Yeah, and there's another part basically when they're on the helicopter, they're getting fuel, and Peter has to shoot these zombie kids. And again, for out now, modern day, it's not really anything crazy to kill zombie kids because I think like the first episode of Walking Dead, like no,
Yeah.
it begins with him killing, like that's the stinger. He kills the zombie little girl. So it's kind of been like everything's been desensitized these days, but I'd also definitely say this is maybe not the first time but definitely one of the first prominent instances in at least in American media in a big film where like a main character, like a protagonist, kills children even if they are zombies.
Yeah, I would have kicked those motherfuckers through the wall. I don't care.
Well, you're a camp counselor, so you have a different view of kids.
I'm a
Or you
recovering
were.
camp counselor.
Yeah, I was about to say you were a camp counselor. But yeah, but again, you were right. That for the time that was a disturbing scene, and that also shakes up Peter. But anyways, soon we get to the real the meat of the film, which is the setting is a mall. That's where they decide to hold up.
Not bad.
Oh, before we get to that, real quick, there's a part in the film that doesn't quite age well, but I guess you could forgive it because it's like takes place in the 70s, and I guess that's how I can imagine that's probably how some people talked when they're basically getting acquainted with each other when they're in the helicopter. And the lady, Fran, is talking to Peter, and they're all asking if they have families and whatever. And Fran says to Peter, "Oh no, Peter says, yeah, I lost a couple brothers due to this thing." And she says in response, "Get a load of this, real brothers or like street brothers?" And it's
It's like,
like,
oh,
whoa,
damn, girl.
Jesus Christ, this really is a '70s movie. And like the way he responds too, with the tone, he's like, "Yeah, it's real brothers." Like as if in his head he's saying like, "Fucking dumb bitch."
Yeah, shit
Guys,
like that is funny. Like, clueless white woman character.
yeah, it doesn't really endear you to her. To be
Yeah, no.
fair, Fran is marginally better than whatever her name, Barbara from Night of the Living Dead.
They
Like,
weren't coming for Fran, they were coming for Barbara.
they're coming to get you, Barbara. Anyways,
Oh.
that movie's so good. Anyways, to this movie's credit, she does more than Fran did. And no, that she does more than Barbara did, which was jack shit. Anyway, so they get to the mall. They realize that they can stay in the mall and do shit. They do a supply run, and Flyboy goes off on his own because he's like, "Those guys are maniacs. They're also showing me up in front of my lady friend.
They've got bigger balls than me.
I gotta prove that I got the biggest balls." And he almost gets himself killed, basically.
My balls are so big, my helicopter can barely carry them.
Anyways, to get to the point of it, they eventually decide they should stay there, but they got to figure out, and this is kind of like a big chunk of the film, they got to figure out they got to figure out basically how to close off the doors, make sure the zombies outside can't get in, and like basically the best way to kill all the zombies in the mall that are already there so they could have like a peaceful existence in this mall. They come up with this somewhat clever plan where there's these giant trucks outside the building, and they decide to use them to block the entrance of the mall, so the zombies can't really get past. Kind
Mm-hmm.
of seals it off. Okay, so a couple things. So Fran is actually somewhat useful, as in she's up there sniping zombies and shit. So she kind of learns how to use a gun and is actually useful to a degree. And
Yeah.
Crazy Soldier Man and Peter are out grabbing the trucks and driving them up in front to block off the entrance. And this is where Crazy Soldier Man or Trooper kind of starts losing it a bit.
Yeah.
Like he really flies off the handle. They don't really give a reason for why he goes so fucking crazy. In the beginning of the film, he's kind of portrayed to be like, oh, he's the big tough white man who's standing up against the racist, and he's level-headed and whatever. One of my favorite lines in this movie, and there are some clearly intended for comedy lines in this film, some really zany ones. One of them is they're driving the trucks or they get in the trucks and whatever, and he's being really aggressive and violent with the zombies and going off the handle. And Peter's like, "Man, what the fuck are you doing? Like, calm the hell down. Like, we got to get this done." And like, I think it's after a zombie almost killed him and he barely survived. And he's like, "What the fuck, man?" And he's like, "Don't worry, man. We got this. We got this by the ass." In a really
Yeah, I
zany
remember
way.
you chuckling at that one.
It's one of my favorite lines in this film because it's just really funny, just how he says it, as opposed to Night of the Living Dead, where it's just really it's a great film, but it's a downer. There's not really much relief. In this film, there's like little gags and bits that they use and lines like that, and it's
The
just
music, the biggest gag of the film.
the biggest gag in the film. Yes, the very controversial music, apparently. But anyways, they get the trucks in front of the place. It all works out, except for fucking crazy trooper man gets bit like 3 times or 2 times or something. Then they have to deal with him being in a wheelbarrow, which was a
Yeah.
funny visual for me. So I'm just gonna kind of power through a couple things. They kill all the zombies in the place, and they throw them in the freezer. It's actually kind of fun how like well thought out their plan is because they logically think it out. Like, oh, these zombies are gonna fucking stink up the place, so they throw them in the freezer. Anyways, then they have their fun mall scene where they hang out in a mall,
Mm. Yeah,
and
they have like a shopping spree.
this I think is another kind of influential scene in that looking back, it's just kind of just a couple people screwing around in the mall, but it's kind of like sets up this cliche of I don't know what to call it, but people in places that are either shut down or an apocalypse has happened in a place that you normally don't have free reign of. You have free reign of.
Yeah, and they just go crazy and like get so much shit just because
Yeah,
they can.
exactly. And people have seen this scene in a lot of movies, and apocalyptic movies, and just movies where I don't know, people are in a place after it closes or some shit like a premise like that. It's kind of become a cliche, but this I think is one of the first instances of that, especially definitely in an apocalypse setting. But it's kind of a fun
Mhm.
relief to just watch them. There's a montage of just them screwing around because they spent so long trying to take over the mall that it's a nice kind of reprieve from everything.
You know what I just realized?
What?
I know we were talking about why didn't they turn off the mall's PA system, right?
Yes.
Maybe they did that because they wanted to hear some other voice, than just theirs.
That's kind of a good theory about that. When I was talking to you about it, I didn't really kind of articulate it, but my theory about it is because it's an automated system and it plays at different times of the day, is I think it's just so they can have like, instead of just looking at a watch, it's like they have like set things. Like here, they'll listen to it and they'll be like, the morning sale, and they can kind of like, okay, they can keep track of their day. It kind of keeps them synchronized as to where like otherwise they'd be just trapped in this one place and days would just blend into the next. So I guess there's 2 points to hit on, really, unless you want to talk about anything about the montage that stuck out to you of them fucking around.
I liked I liked when well, I didn't like when the soldier boy ate an olive and then just started drinking the juice from the jar because I don't like olives, so I was like, oh God, what's
I
wrong with
like
that man?
olives.
No, I don't like olives. I used to for some reason, now I don't. But one thing
Okay.
I did like is when Flyboy picked up the little loaf of bread and he was like, "Oh, what do you think? What do you think?" And then the goldfish picked up the gigantic loaf of bread and he was like, "Come on, man, you're fucking with me. Let's get this big one." And I was like, "Yeah, let's get the big loaf of bread."
Yeah, that was fun. Again, that's part of this film's kind of quirky humor that I
Mhm.
like. And
Oh, do you think it was like a metaphor for penis size?
yeah, maybe.
That's funny. That's funny.
In which case the joke works on multiple levels.
Yeah.
That's
I
good.
love
Yeah, I
it.
like that. It's funny. I didn't even realize that. What would have been great if like Flyboy came in and he got like a breadstick.
Oh yeah, he had like a fucking like he had like a tater tot.
That'd be too obvious, but you're right. That was a good joke. Yeah, and I'm trying to think. It's just a fun scene. They're playing video games, taking candy and shit. Anyways, there's a scene where the two lovers are having dinner, Fran and Flyboy, and it's weird. It's kind of a play dinner, and Peter kind of serves them the dinner. It's a little weird because they're doing this play kind of fancy dinner, and they're having Peter be their waiter. And it's kind of a little weird because you're
Yeah.
having the only black guy kind of be a waiter to the. And I get it. He's kind of trying to be. Peter's trying to be nice to let them have like a night together or something. And I
Hmm.
think the implication is that Peter knows that Flyboy is going to try and propose to her, but still, it's a little weird.
I don't know. Maybe Soldier Boy was cooking.
I think we'll get to that. I think he's already spoiler dead at that point.
Um.
I
Oh
feel
yeah,
like
I think he's getting there.
anyways, Flyboy is like, we should get married. He like proposes to her, and she's like, no, it's not right, not like this. And I'm like, lady, I don't know how fucking optimistic you are, but I don't think things are getting much better. So like,
Yeah, take it when you can get it.
marriage isn't just a piece of paper. Take the rings, just say you're married, have like a little night, have some champagne, and just take it for what it is. I don't think you're gonna get back to a point where you can get legally married or have a wedding celebration. Like,
Yeah, man, if it was a zombie apocalypse and somebody still proposed to me, I'd be like, I mean, I might as well. What are my options, you know? Be
and
sad and lonely?
it's
No.
not like she's established to be, and they're already pregnant. I think we touched on that again. And it's like, it's not like it's established that she's unrealistically optimistic about it. There's literally a scene where Flyboy is trying to keep the TV on for any future broadcasts or announcements, and there hasn't been anything for days. And she's like, shut it up. There's no use for it anymore. Nothing's going to come back on. So it's like, you obviously have like an idea of this situation. So I just didn't get it.
I guess maybe that was her becoming like a girl boss, you know, because like she was learning how to fly the helicopter, she was learning how to shoot guns, and now she's like, no, actually, I'm not dependent on a man anymore.
Guess, but I still feel like you're supposed to sympathize with their relationship.
Yeah, I don't know. I think she was just like getting depressed about
I
it,
don't know.
maybe.
I think it was
Like,
just I don't
like
know. It's supposed to.
nihilistic, maybe, kind of like doom mindset. What's the
It's.
point?
I mean, it's the opposite because he's literally like, no, not like this. It has to be better or whatever or something. I don't know. It's a very not well written reason to not get married. I don't know.
Yeah.
So next point, I guess to hit on was Flyboy, not Flyboy, Soldier Boy is getting worse and worse, and he's getting sicker, and he's getting crazier. And
He keeps repeating himself.
what does he say? He's like, "Didn't we
Like,
whip him?" And he's like, "We whooped him." He's like, "Didn't we whip him?" Yeah, we whipped him.
we whipped him, didn't we? Yeah,
Yeah.
shut the fuck up and die already.
And then he just screams, "Yeah, we whipped." Him.
Yeah, and then he
And
keeps being like, I don't want to turn into one of them things. And then he says that like 5 times, each with
yeah,
increasingly less comprehensible.
yeah, and it's like, wow, this got really drawn out.
Yeah, it's like,
But
man, we get it.
yeah, eventually he turns, and as a zombie, he looks pretty ugly.
Yeah, he aged like freaking 40 years in the 10 seconds it took for him to come back to be undead.
Yeah, and but in that case, it was kind of good, at least I guess in the makeup department, despite the blue skin, of course. But
No, it wasn't.
I think the aging of the face was kind of cool, like despite the blueness of it.
Yes, I mean his head also took on the shape of like a cereal box. Like he became a fucking rectangle.
I think the decay of his face was kind of cool. Again, aside from the gray hue of it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. So Peter shoots him. That's the end of that. And then they have a new problem because this gang of fucking this not even gang army of bikers sees their helicopter and they try to contact them, but they're such fuckheads that they can't even like pull a fly to
They
tell
can't
them.
even hold character while they're sitting there with their radio on. They're like, hey, there's like 3 of us. Can we stop by for some supplies? There's actually 20 of us, but don't tell them that. Oh, yeah, there's 3 of us. We need some
Well,
help. We're gonna kill them.
and I kind of like that because I'd say it's realistic in how like really like looter, annoying, like obnoxious people would be in situations like that. They kind of want to try and trick them, but they really just they don't care. They're like they're gonna break into the mall and take shit and whatever. They're gonna do what they're gonna do. So they act like a bunch of fucking drunken frat idiots. They're like, as he said, they're interrupting. They can't hold it. Like when he's trying to be like, "There's 3 of us," and they all start like fucking laughing.
They're
But
like whooping. They're like, yeah, 3 of us. Woo, yeah.
oh, before we get back to that, there's a very there's this part where they're like looking at the helicopter with binoculars. He's like, and one guy's like commenting on the people there, like, and there's another guy just repeating back to him what he's saying. I didn't comment on it when we were watching it, but the guy will say something like, "There are people up there," and the other guy will be like, "Yeah, people," and then
Mhm.
my favorite part is he goes like, they use trucks to block the entrance, and then the other guy will go, "Yeah, trucks."
It's like, oh my god, you know what that reminds me of? Animal Crossing. Tom Nook's adopted sons.
He has adopted
Tommy and
sons.
Timmy. Yeah. Little tanukis that he took in and he's training them in the business world. But Tommy and Timmy, and like when one says something, it'll be like, come check out our awesome deals today. And then the other one will be like, deals today.
That's exactly what it was.
Yeah, it's fucking
Anyways,
Tom Nook's kids.
I can't remember all of them, but these biker whatever people have a lot of very zany lines, and I love them.
Yeah. And what
And
about
one of
that
them,
one special biker?
the one with the handlebar mustache and the
Yes.
machete and the leather jacket, my favorite of them, not only because I think he is a fun little character and he's one of the more notable ones. He's played by Tom Savini, the special effects person for this movie. It's cool. He has a kind of a little bit of a substantial role in the last climax of this film, and he's fun. I don't know.
You're fun.
You're fun.
Stop.
Now, anywho, so
Moving on.
they break into the place. They start looting the shit out of it. They go fucking wild. And I really like this part of the film. They really are fucking with the zombies. They're like beating the shit out of them and shit. And they're like laughing at the zombies and fucking with them, like as if
Yeah.
the zombies fucking cared. So it's great. They literally there's a great part, and
Yeah.
I don't care how zany or weird or out of place it is, where they just start pieing the zombies in the face like Three Stooges sketches. I guess there were pies that are just readily available, even though that the people group, our main group, has been living there for I think like a couple months.
Mm-hmm.
I forget how long it is, but they've been there for a while. But
It
there's
is
just
very quirky.
there's another great bit where this guy is insistent on using the blood pressure machine in the mall. And there's one part of the film where, like, I think either Peter or Flyboy is shooting at them because he's so enraged at how much of an asshole all of them are. And then the guy's like, while he's getting shot at, he's checking his blood pressure. One guy's just like, "What the hell are you doing?" Well, we're checking your blood pressure while we're getting shot up from up there. Ugh.
And he dives in there with 6 zombies already in a fucking semicircle around the blood pressure machine, and he just sticks his arm in there like, oh yeah, they'll wait their turn. No,
Yeah,
they ripped his fucking arm off.
yeah. Not only like he's getting surrounded by zombies, and like you think he's gonna leave or just fight back, but like he does this move like right before I do anything, I'm just gonna check my blood pressure one last time, and then
Yeah.
the zombies just kill him like you think they would.
It's
It's
like,
like
no, my blood pressure. What's my pulse rate?
it's just
Oh.
like, dude, what did you think was gonna happen?
That was a
it's
no-brainer, my man.
it's
Sure,
a
okay,
great
you
bit
got
though.
a heart, but do you have a brain?
I don't know. Maybe it's like maybe they were just making fun of like the mass public because I guess that was a thing at the time. Like they would have malls with blood pressure machines,
Okay,
and
I will say, if I see a blood pressure machine, I'm sticking my arm in that thing.
I think they might be making a joke at like people. They're just like people are so fucking enamored with checking their own blood pressure. You go to the doctors, it's nothing special, but people are just checking their own blood pressure. I think I've seen a couple malls where they've had that, but not many.
I mean, I usually see them at like Costco or maybe at the drugstore, and like, I swear to God, I'm gonna put my arm in that fucking thing. So they got that right.
I like never ever see them. Like I think I remember seeing them a little bit when I was a kid, but I don't really see them at all these days. So, anyways, Black Boy gets fucking eaten by zombies.
Yeah, he turns in an elevator
Yeah,
like a corporate pig.
he's still because of like rigor mortis or something or whatever, but or just guess the way zombies move. Like he died with a gun, so he has a gun in his hand, like it's just hanging off his finger. It's a bit of a funny like moment, but I think Peter kills Machete, Tom Savini man. Yeah, they head back up. And then, like, and I will say this is a good moment because they go up to their little hidey hole. Because when they first got there, they have like a little back area that's kind of hidden off, and
Mm-hmm.
that's where they keep their food and shit.
And their shit,
Basically,
yeah.
yeah, and their shit.
Keep it right next to the food, yeah.
They
Makes
got
it
to go
tastier.
somewhere. It's a compost.
Oh yeah, and they do a little gardening.
They do a little gardening, so
Do.
they exactly. They very well could be using their own shit to compost the soil.
Talk about recycling.
Exactly. Anywho, this is a bit of a clever point because throughout the film, keep establishing that zombies, the reason they go to malls and shit, or like are go to areas where people would gather normally, is because they have some sort of instinctual memory of places they've been. So they use that actually ends up, it's not just used for why they're in the mall. It ends up being a plot point because Flyboy's zombie self ends up remembering the spot where they hide up in the mall and starts headed up there, leading a bunch of zombies to them. So I think that was a bit of a clever plot point that they cleverly set up in the thing. I like
Very
that.
cleverly, yes.
Yeah, I said cleverly twice, so what?
So clever.
Basically, they start getting the fuck out of there, and fucking Fran learned how to fly in their intermediate months. There's a scene about it, whatever.
Yeah. That was her hot girl
So
summer. She learned how to fly, she learned how to shoot, and she ditched her man. Queen.
it's very progressive when you think about it.
But her
Uh,
fucking makeup in that one scene.
oh yeah, when she's trying to get dolled up.
Yeah, God, the fucking bright blue eyeshadow with her blue eyes absolutely clashes. The hot pink lips, the nasty ass fake beauty mark.
Yeah, it was very hookery.
Not even hooker, dollar store whore.
I mean, you really have it out for it. I don't really have an opinion to begin with, but sure, I agree with you.
I saw it and I was like, Christ almighty, what is she? Harley Quinn from the fucking Suicide Squad? She was holding a gun too, like.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe she was trying to be a James Bond girl.
She looked like James Bond trying to be a girl.
True, which is better than that movie where James Bond went undercover and changed his skin color.
Oh my goodness.
I think that is a film, the racist one.
Oh my goodness.
Moving on from that, so
Yes.
they have a ladder going up to the helipad where they can escape, and Peter's like, I guess his point of view is like, the world sucks. Everybody we know died. I'm just gonna stay here and kill myself. And she's like, really? And then he's like, yeah, go. And she leaves, and she goes up to the helicopter, and the zombies break in, and he goes into this small room where he's gonna kill himself. And then she's getting the helicopter started, and she's like looking out, presumably waiting for him, I guess, hoping he'll come to his senses, I guess. Sitting there about to shoot himself, and he's like, you know what, fuck this. And then the music has this whole heroic adventure vibe, and it's like, dun, 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 and he's like punching zombies, and he climbs up the ladder, and it's a nice moment, kind of like,
Yeah.
if you think it's gonna end depressingly, like the Night of the Living Dead, where the main character dies, and that one too at the end, he kind of, does a bit of a swerve at the end there, and he goes up, makes it to the helicopter just in time, and they abscond with as much fuel as they have left, and they go off into the sunset.
Yay.
And it's a bit of a nice ending. Anyways,
Then they play some other fuck ass song.
and then they play a ridiculous song to the zombies walking around, which I think is amazing. I think this movie is fun. I like it a lot.
It was certainly fun, yeah.
I think while it's very goofy and kind of zany at parts, I do think it has a lot of good ideas, and I like the idea of the plot and the general plot. And I think the characters, while they are kind of zany, they kind of set up a dynamic that works. I think the acting works a lot to a degree, and I think they kind of, for the most part, keep up like a good structure of the plot. They get at the mall. They have to fortify the mall. They're living in the mall. They have to
Yeah.
deal with that, and then they have to deal with this invasion of these bikers. They kind of keep a good flow to it.
The female character did have more depth than the first movie, which was good.
Yeah, that's true. And I think the movie does a lot in terms of tone and setting, and they have it's similar to the first film. They have a lot to say in terms of human like nature and interaction. It's a bit more optimistic view of humans, and as in where the Night of the Living Dead, everything falls apart because they aren't able to work together. In this film, they're able to work together, and there's a bit of kind of redemption at the end. And I think it has some fun humor overall. I think it is. I think it's a classic film, and I think it's good. And I think it's not definitely my favorite. I'd have to say, if I had to choose, I think Night of the Living Dead overall is better in terms of tone and holding up and stuff, and it's a lot less goofy. But I think this film is good, and I think it holds a place in terms of historical importance and influence and whatever. And
Quite so, quite so. I think this one was silly as shit, but fuck if I didn't like it.
I'm glad you enjoyed it to some degree.
Yes.
I think this might be the first sequel, kind of. There's no continuity, but it's the first follow-up in a franchise we've done on this podcast.
Yeah, I guess so.
To sum it up, I'd recommend you check it out if you haven't already. Especially if you're into zombies and shit. If I were to rate it anything, 7 blue zombies out of 10 blood pressure machines.
Alright, I think I'll rate it 6.5 cream pies out of 10.
That's a good one too.
I know, right? It's a good one.
All right, I like that. Oh, actually, important thing. I want to do a little bit of a promotion here. In the description of whatever you're listening to this on, it basically links to our homepage, our Twitter, our Instagram, and the different platforms you can reach us on. The biggest ones being Spotify and iTunes. And if you go to our homepage, you can find any other places where we might be, like Google Podcasts and other things. It's listed there, and you can check us out there. If you are listening to this / watching this, if you are listening to fucking Jesus. If you are listening to this on YouTube or / watching this on YouTube, you can go down to the description and check out all of that shit as well. You know, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and whatever, and support us and whatever else. And you can listen to our audio format if you're checking this out on the YouTube channel. And you may be noticing that this has been released on a Monday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard, and what is it, 2 p.m. Central?
Yes.
Whatever your time is.
2 p.m., yeah.
It is being released on Monday, this episode, because on Friday we have a special episode being premiered. So we're having a 2-for-1 this week, or not a 2-for-1, we're having, 2-for-1, 2-for-1 week. We're having a 2-for-1 this week where we will be doing a special episode that is centered around the upcoming film. You may have or may not have heard of it. Black Widow by that little known studio called Marvel. You know, they're a bit indie, but
shut the fuck up.
They're doing a special tie-in episode, kind of. We're not reviewing the movie because we have not seen it yet. But
we're clickbaiting.
We're reviewing a related thing, and it'll come out. It'll be a centered Black Widow media thing that we will be releasing on our normal time slot on Friday. Please check that out and support us on all our other shit, like I said just now. Just letting everybody know about that. This has been the Awful Earful with Ryan
and Crofton.
And that's all, folks.